Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Protests continue in London over Palestine Action bans. Shutdown threats rise with economic worries. Intense Russian attacks devastate Ukraine. The US is behind in electric car development. Godka Jilicow Prison attack exposes security weaknesses. Babis wins Czech election, forming a coalition. Syria holds limited elections with significant concerns. Georgia protests escalate with a palace storming attempt. Sanae Takaichi seeks the Japanese prime minister role. Thai authorities demand Cambodian evacuation. ThaiBev promotes sufficiency economy for sustainability. Trump authorizes National Guard deployment in Chicago. Pritzker criticizes the Chicago crackdown. The Conservative Party's immigration plan dominates UK news. FBI agents' refusal fuels controversy in the Comey case. Peace Haven mosque fire raises hate crime fears. Protests against Palestine Action ban continue in London amidst security concerns. Large-scale demonstrations against the proscription of the Palestine Action activist group continued in London on Saturday, coinciding with heightened security concerns following an attack at a Manchester synagogue earlier in the week. Approximately 1,000 individuals gathered in Trafalgar Square, according to Defend Our Juries, the organization coordinating the protests. Police subsequently arrested 492 people, primarily for supporting the banned group. The arrests included a 79-year-old daughter of a Holocaust survivor, a 79-year-old Jewish man with a terminal illness, and an 83-year-old Anglican priest, highlighting the diverse range of participants. The demonstrations underscore the ongoing debate surrounding freedom of speech and the government's decision to designate Palestine Action as a terrorist organization. Critics argued that the ban represents an infringement on civil liberties, while authorities maintain that the designation is necessary to protect the Jewish community from violence. The Metropolitan Police emphasized the need to prioritize community safety, suggesting that resources dedicated to arresting protesters could be better utilized elsewhere. The protest occurred against a backdrop of heightened security following the synagogue attack, which prompted calls for increased vigilance and protection measures. Organizers of the demonstrations argued that the police response was disproportionate and aimed at suppressing dissent rather than safeguarding the community. They demanded that the government reconsider its approach and engage in constructive dialogue. The situation reflects a broader tension between the right to protest and concerns about extremism. The government's decision to proscribe Palestine Action has ignited controversy, with legal challenges anticipated. The demonstrations represent a sustained effort to challenge the government's policy and raise awareness of the issues surrounding the conflict in Palestine. The events continue to draw attention to the complex and deeply rooted nature of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the differing perspectives within the international community. Shutdown threat intensifies as economic concerns mount. A protracted government shutdown looms larger as top economic advisors, including Donald Trump's former chief economic advisor Lawrence Kudlow, are warning of significant job losses if Congress fails to reach a resolution within the next few days. Kudlow, speaking to CNN, expressed deep concern about the potential economic ramifications, stating that businesses are already preparing for layoffs due to the uncertainty surrounding federal funding. He emphasized the fragility of the current economic situation and the immediate threat posed by the shutdown, highlighting the risk of widespread job losses across various sectors. Meanwhile, Republican lawmakers are increasingly blaming Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer for the impasse. A GOP lawmaker, speaking on the record, directly attributed the shutdown to Schumer's leadership, labeling it the Schumer shutdown. This accusation reflects a growing frustration within the Republican Party, who believe Schumer is unwilling to compromise and is deliberately prolonging the negotiations. The lawmaker asserted that Schumer's stance is prioritizing political gains over the needs of the country and the stability of the federal government. The shutdown, now entering its fifth day, has already impacted federal agencies, leading to the closure of national parks, postponement of government services, and disruptions to federal employee operations. Negotiations between Republican and Democratic leadership have stalled, with fundamental disagreements remaining on funding levels for specific programs, particularly regarding border security and aid to Ukraine. Both sides acknowledge the need for a resolution, but remain entrenched in their positions, fueling anxieties about the potential long-term consequences of the shutdown on the U.S. economy and government operations. The situation remains highly volatile, with no immediate breakthrough anticipated. Intense Russian attacks cause widespread damage and casualties across Ukraine. Overnight, Ukraine faced a significant escalation in Russian attacks, resulting in 5 deaths and widespread damage, primarily targeting the western region. particularly Lviv. President Zelensky reported more than 50 missiles and approximately 500 attack drones were launched, with the Air Force confirming a total of 478 missiles and drones were downed, though 6 failed to reach their intended targets. The largest attack on Lviv since the start of the full-scale invasion in 2022 involved 163 drones and missiles, leading to the suspension of public transport and power outages affecting over 73,000 consumers in Zaporizhia. A particularly devastating strike in Lipavka resulted in the deaths of 4 members of one family, including a 15-year-old girl, with other injuries sustained by relatives and neighbors. The attacks extended to other regions including Ivano-Frankivsk, Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Kherson, Odessa, and Kirovohrad. Poland scrambled fighter jets and deployed Allied aircraft to ensure airspace safety. Ukraine's air defense systems engaged heavily, repelling drone and missile attacks. The Russian military continued its focus on targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure as winter approached, exacerbating the situation. Power outages were reported across multiple regions, disrupting daily life. The incident in Lipavka highlighted the ongoing threat to civilian populations. Following the attacks, Ukraine's Air Force issued warnings of fresh attacks, maintaining a state of heightened alert. The conflict has resulted in Russia controlling approximately 1/5 of Ukrainian territory, including Crimea, annexed in 2014, and the ongoing struggle for control of the Donbass region. The coordinated efforts of allied nations to bolster Ukraine's air defenses were crucial in mitigating the damage. The situation remains volatile, with continued threats to critical infrastructure and civilian safety. The U.S. lagging behind in the electric car race. Recent surges in electric car sales in the United States, topping 1.2 million battery vehicles last year and exceeding 5 times the previous figure, are largely attributed to a temporary government tax credit expiring at the end of September. However, analysts predict a significant downturn in demand as this incentive vanishes, with carmakers anticipating a vibrant but much smaller industry. The U.S. currently lags significantly behind other global markets, including the UK, where battery and hybrid vehicles account for nearly 30% of new sales, and China, where they constitute almost half of overall sales. Policy differences are a key factor in this disparity. The U.S. has historically offered comparatively weaker government support compared to nations like China, the UK, and Europe, which have utilized subsidies, trade-in programs, and regulations to accelerate EV adoption. While President Biden's administration implemented measures such as increased government fleet purchases, loan programs, and charging station development, these efforts were partially undermined by the Trump administration's efforts to dismantle them. High average transaction prices for electric vehicles in the U.S. exceeding $57,000 compared to around $20,000 in the U.K. further contribute to the challenge. Chinese manufacturers, particularly BYD, have been effectively excluded due to tariffs on Chinese-made cars and parts. Despite recent price reductions by companies like Hyundai to offset the tax credit loss, Tesla's monthly lease payments are expected to rise. Analysts foresee a difficult 2026, projecting a roughly 2% decline in overall car sales, compounded by new tariffs introduced by the Trump administration. The industry's future hinges on carmakers' pricing strategies amid these challenges, with the end of the tax credit and tariffs creating a complex and potentially restrictive environment for electric vehicle adoption in the United States. The gap between the U.S. and other global markets in electric vehicle sales is expected to widen as a result. Godka Jilicow Prison attack reveals security vulnerabilities. On Saturday evening, a daring assault on the Godka Jilicow Prison in Mogadishu, Somalia, resulted in the deaths of all 7 al-Shabaab militants involved. The attack, characterized by a significant explosion and intense gunfire, targeted the detention center, which houses al-Shabaab fighters and other high-profile detainees, managed by Somalia's National Intelligence and Security Agency, NISA. Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility, asserting that they liberated all the Muslim prisoners and inflicted substantial casualties upon the security forces. Remarkably, the militants employed a tactic of disguising themselves as soldiers to gain access to the heavily guarded facility. The incident, occurring near the Somali presidential palace, highlights serious security vulnerabilities within the NISA operation and raises questions about the breach of one of Mogadishu's most secure areas. While the government refrained from disclosing the number of its security personnel killed, expressing condolences to their families, al-Shabaab remained silent regarding its own militant casualties. The assault commenced around 1640 local time to 1340 GMT. Prior to the attack, the Somali government had taken steps to improve security by reopening key roads in Mogadishu, citing enhanced safety conditions. This action underscores the ongoing efforts to stabilize the capital and combat the persistent threat posed by al-Shabaab. The extremist group affiliated with al-Qaeda has been engaged in a protracted and brutal insurgency against the Somali government for nearly 2 decades. The brazen operation at Godka Jilicow represents a significant setback for the government and a stark reminder of the challenges in securing the country. The attack prompted immediate investigations into the circumstances surrounding the breach and the effectiveness of security protocols. Babis wins Czech election, forms coalition prospects. Andrej Babis's populist ANO party secured victory in the Czech Republic's parliamentary elections, although falling short of a majority. The party garnered nearly 35% of the vote, resulting in 80 seats in the 200-member lower house, a significant increase from their previous 72. Babis, previously prime minister from 2017 to 2021, celebrated the win with supporters, incorporating a popular 1981 Italian pop song into his victory announcement. He intends to lead negotiations for a new coalition government. Babis's path to power hinges on forming an alliance with 2 smaller right-wing, Eurosceptic parties, Motorists for Themselves and Freedom and Direct Democracy (SPD), led by Tomio Okamura. The ANO parties shared concerns regarding EU emissions targets and opposition to the ban on new petrol and diesel cars after 2035 aligned closely with the motorists' views. However, relations with SPD could be complicated due to Okamura's alliance with fringe parties, potentially limiting his control over parliamentary seats. Babis has ruled out holding referendums on EU or NATO membership, a key demand of the SPD. Despite employing anti-Ukrainian rhetoric during the campaign, Babis intends to maintain Czech military support for Ukraine's war effort. The ANO party's focus on economic prosperity and sovereignty within the European Union appears to be the central theme of his government. The party's victory signals a continuation of populist sentiment in the Czech Republic and presents significant challenges for forming a stable coalition government. Babis's strategy emphasizes aligning with parties sharing similar ideological viewpoints, prioritizing economic considerations, and maintaining a degree of independence from the EU. The outcome of coalition negotiations will determine the future direction of the Czech Republic's policy and its role within the European Union. Syria holds limited elections amidst concerns. Syria held its first parliamentary elections since the ousting of Bashar al-Assad in December, but the process remains incomplete and controversial. The elections, scheduled for Sunday, are being conducted amidst significant security concerns and questions regarding inclusivity, due to ongoing instability and violence. The polls are not taking place in 3 provinces, Raqqa, Hassakeh, and Sueda, effectively limiting the electoral process to just 50 out of 60 districts, covering approximately 120 seats. The elections will utilize electoral colleges to select representatives for 2/3 of the 210 seats, with interim President Ahmed al-Sharaa appointing the remaining 70. The postponement of the elections in the 3 provinces stemmed from security issues, including clashes between government forces and Druze militias in Sueda, and ongoing conflict in the Kurdish-controlled regions of Raqqa and Hassakeh. Al-Sharaa has pledged to hold those responsible for the country's bloodshed accountable and to rebuild Syria through establishing new institutions and laws guaranteeing rights for all. Over 1,500 candidates are contesting the seats, but those affiliated with the former regime, terrorist organizations, or advocating for secession, division, or foreign intervention have been barred. A key concern revolves around female representation, with at least 20% of the Electoral College members required to be women. However, no minimum quotas were established for female lawmakers or ethnic religious minorities. 14 Syrian civil society groups expressed deep reservations, arguing that Shara's direct and indirect influence over the Higher Committee for the Syrian People's Assembly elections and the Electoral Colleges renders the elections symbolic at best, devoid of their democratic purpose. The use of outdated 2010 census data for seat allocation also raises questions about the accuracy and fairness of the process. The overall outcome suggests a limited and potentially manipulated democratic process, highlighting the continued challenges facing Syria's transition. Georgia protests escalate with palace storming attempt at Tbilisi. Georgia violent clashes erupted in the Georgian capital as thousands of anti-government protesters attempted to storm the presidential palace, resulting in arrests and the use of force by security forces. The unrest, fueled by widespread discontent over the disputed 2020 elections and subsequent government actions, highlights a deepening political crisis within the Caucasus nation. Following the ruling Georgian Dream Party's victory, the opposition, advocating for closer ties with the European Union, alleges electoral fraud and a systematic crackdown on dissent. The demonstration, occurring concurrently with local elections largely boycotted by the opposition due to government repression, saw demonstrators march towards the palace, triggering a response from riot police who deployed water cannons and pepper spray to disperse the crowd. Opera singer Pata Berchiladze, a key protest organizer, was among those arrested, delivering a declaration urging internal affairs employees to defy the government. 21-year-old Ai and her friends, prepared with protective gear, joined the protest, reflecting a growing sense of defiance and fear of repercussions. Authorities have imposed hefty fines, 5,000 Georgian lari, on individuals accused of blocking streets, further escalating tensions. Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze vowed retribution, stating that those involved in the attempted overthrow would face consequences. The opposition views the protests as a crucial step to restore democracy, while the Georgian Dream Party maintains its grip on power, citing its ability to maintain stability and appealing to a segment of the population who believe its policies align with Russia's interests. The government's actions, including arrests and fines, have drawn criticism internationally, underscoring the fragility of Georgia's democratic transition and the deep divisions within the country. The scale of the protests, coupled with the government's forceful response, paints a picture of a nation grappling with political instability and a struggle for its future direction. The ongoing situation reflects a fundamental disagreement between those seeking Western integration and those who perceive a closer relationship with Russia as beneficial to Georgia. Sanae Takaichi, Japan's path to Prime Minister. Sanae Takaichi, a 64-year-old former television host and heavy metal drummer, has achieved a historic milestone, becoming the leader of Japan's Liberal Democratic Party, ALDP, and a leading contender to be the country's first female prime minister. Her journey to leadership has been marked by 3 attempts, culminating in victory after the first round of voting in 2024. Takaichi's background is remarkably diverse, shaped by experiences ranging from observing U.S.-Japan trade friction to working for a U.S. congresswoman. Her early observations fueled a conservative stance, particularly regarding tradition and national identity. Born in Nara Prefecture, Takaichi's upbringing was far removed from politics, evidenced by her past as a drummer and scuba diver. She gained political inspiration during the 1980s, recognizing the potential for misunderstanding between Japan and the United States. This experience shaped her views on national defense and international relations. Takaichi's political career began in 1992 as an independent candidate, followed by a seat in parliament in 1993. She has been elected 10 times, with only 1 defeat, establishing herself as a prominent conservative voice within the LDP. She has held numerous senior government roles, including Minister for Economic Security, State Minister for Trade and Industry, and Minister for Internal Affairs and Communications. A key element of Takaichi's platform is centered around family support, reflecting her personal experiences with nursing and caregiving. She advocates for tax deductions for babysitter fees and corporate tax breaks for companies offering in-house childcare. Her policies also address Japan's aging population and declining birth rate. Takaichi is a staunch conservative, opposing legislation allowing women to retain their maiden names and advocating for easing constitutional restrictions on Japan's self-defense forces. She has been a frequent visitor to the Yasukuni Shrine, honoring Japan's war dead. Takaichi's leadership is also rooted in the Abenomics economic vision, a policy of high public spending and cheap borrowing, echoing the approach of her predecessor, Shinzo Abe. She aims to create a society where individuals are not forced to abandon their careers due to caregiving responsibilities. Thai authorities demand Cambodian evacuation from border regions. Tensions escalated between Thailand and Cambodia following a formal request from the Thai First Army region for the immediate evacuation of Cambodian nationals residing in 3 border communities within Sakeo province. The affected areas are Ban Nong Chan, Ban Nong Ya Keo, and Ban Ta Phraea, all located in Kok Sung and Ta Phraea districts respectively. The demand, formalized through a letter signed by Eltgen Warayat Lueng Suan, commander of the 1st Army Region, stipulates that Cambodia's Military Region 5 must submit an evacuation plan by October 7th, to be presented at a regional border committee meeting in Cambodia's Bantay Meanchey province between October 10th and 12th. The Thai government's stance is rooted in concerns about illegal border crossings and encroachment upon Thai territory. The Royal Forest Department is being directed to file criminal complaints against Cambodian individuals occupying forest land near Ban Nong Chan, a former refugee campsite, enforcing the Forest Act. Natural Resources and Environment Minister Suchart Chonklin emphasized the absolute prohibition of unlawful land occupation, irrespective of nationality. The Thai government's resolve is underscored by the declaration of martial law, placing security forces in charge of enforcing the situation. The primary objective is the reclamation of Thai territory, with a firm commitment not to concede any ground. The upcoming Regional Border Committee meeting represents a critical juncture in negotiations, with Thailand's attendance contingent upon Cambodia's acceptance of the evacuation demand. The situation highlights ongoing disputes over border demarcation and land ownership, demanding a coordinated response from both nations to prevent further escalation. The core issue revolves around securing the Thai border and asserting national sovereignty. ThaiBev CEO advocates sufficiency economy for global sustainability. ThaiBev CEO Thapana Sirivadabadi presented the sufficiency economy philosophy, CPU as a core mechanism for achieving global sustainability during the closing ceremony of the Sustainability Expo 2025. Speaking at the SX Launching Forward session, held at the Queen Sirikit National Convention Center from September 26 to Sunday, Sirivanapakdi emphasized the SEP's potential applicability worldwide. He highlighted the expansion of this year's Expo to include Enactus, an international network of university students focused on developing sustainable business models to address environmental challenges, and its World Cup 2025 competition. Sirivanapakdi underscored that Enactus's summary of the SEP as simply enough, signifying sufficient consumption and contribution within one's capacity, is a crucial concept. He argued that current consumerist trends encourage excessive consumption, ultimately detrimental to both individuals and society. He questioned why efforts to ensure future survival, such as reaching Mars, were prioritized over immediate planetary protection. The CEO stressed the need for a fundamental shift in perspective, urging individuals to determine what truly constitutes enough for themselves and the economy, thereby fostering genuine sustainability. He believes this approach is more effective than solely focusing on ambitious, long-term goals like space colonization. The inclusion of Enactus and its World Cup competition represents a vital platform for the younger generation to contribute innovative solutions to sustainability challenges, further promoting the SEP's global recognition and implementation. The overall message centered on a pragmatic, locally focused approach to sustainability, prioritizing responsible consumption and resource management. Trump authorizes National Guard deployment to Chicago and Pritzker slams Crackdown. President Donald Trump has authorized the deployment of 300 National Guard troops to Chicago in response to what he describes as out-of-control crime, and following confrontations between immigration authorities and protesters. This action occurred after U.S. Border Patrol personnel shot a woman in Chicago who had rammed into immigration enforcement vehicles, an incident involving a semi-automatic weapon. The woman was armed and transported herself to a local hospital with unspecified injuries. The deployment is intended to protect federal officers and assets, according to White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson, who stated the administration would not ignore lawlessness in American cities. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker strongly condemned the deployment, labeling it an abuse of power and asserting that Trump is attempting to manufacture a crisis. He criticized the situation in Chicago, highlighting the ongoing protests related to immigration enforcement, particularly those occurring outside U.S. immigration and customs enforcement facilities. The governor's stance reflects a broader resistance to the federal government's intervention. A federal judge in Portland, Oregon, had previously blocked a similar deployment of 200 troops, citing concerns about constitutional violations and the potential infringement of state sovereignty. Judge Karen Immergut deemed Trump's statements regarding Portland's conditions as untethered to the facts, and warned against blurring the lines between civil and military federal power. The judge's ruling underscored the legal challenges surrounding the use of the military for domestic unrest. The Chicago deployment follows similar actions in Washington, Los Angeles, Memphis, and Portland, raising significant legal and constitutional questions. National Guard deployments are typically authorized by state governors, and century-old laws limit the federal government's use of the military for domestic matters. The situation in Chicago involves persistent protests related to immigration enforcement, further fueling tensions and complicating the response. The administration's justification centers on protecting federal officers and assets, while critics argue the deployment is a politically motivated escalation of the situation. The Conservative Party's ambitious immigration plan dominates UK media coverage, but the Conservative Party's radical immigration policy, spearheaded by leader Kemi Badenoch, is the central focus of extensive media coverage across multiple UK newspapers. The plan, aiming to deport 150,000 illegal migrants annually, is being widely debated and assessed. Robert Jenrick, Shadow Justice Secretary, vehemently criticizes the approach, arguing against pussyfooting and advocating for continued removals until all illegal migrants are deported. Several newspapers highlight the potential impact of this policy, with the Sunday Express praising it as a bold plan and urging detailed study. The Sunday Telegraph reports concerns within the shadow cabinet about Badenoch's leadership, suggesting she has only 6 months to secure her position before potential challenges from Reform UK or other party members. The Observer similarly expresses anxieties about Badenoch's future, stating that a new leader is deemed necessary to avoid the party's potential extinction. The Sunday Telegraph also reports on the crucial conference for Badenoch, emphasizing the need for a bold vision to convince her party she can defeat Reform UK. The Sunday Express continues to champion the plan, while the Sun on Sunday scrutinizes Labour Deputy Leader Angela Rayner's use of taxpayer-funded security personnel to assist her partner, sparking criticism and raising questions about security arrangements for MPs. Beyond the immigration policy, other significant stories dominate the Sunday press. The Mail on Sunday and the Sun on Sunday both report on alleged misuse of public funds by Rayner, with the Sun on Sunday accusing her of taking us for a ride. The Sunday Times reveals that a Chinese spying case was dropped shortly before Badenoch's conference, following advice from Sir Keir Starmer's national security advisor to avoid portraying China as an enemy. Furthermore, the Sunday Telegraph reports on a Labour Party student shindig where traces of cocaine were found, alongside several prominent MPs attending. The Sunday Express continues to focus on the Conservatives' immigration plan. The Observer's coverage centers on the precarious situation facing Badenoch and the Conservative Party, while the Sunday Times highlights the broader political landscape. The overall narrative is one of significant upheaval within the Conservative Party, driven by the ambitious immigration policy and the looming challenge posed by Reform UK. FBI agents' refusal sparks controversy in Comey indictment case. An FBI agent was recently suspended following their refusal to participate in a planned perp walk involving former FBI Director James Comey, who was indicted on 2 federal charges. The incident highlights a disagreement within the FBI regarding the traditional practice of publicly escorting accused individuals outside courthouses. CBS News reports that FBI leadership considered deploying large, beefy agents in Kevlar vests to accompany Comey to his court appearance next week. The suspension underscores the agency's chain of command protocols. The indictment, spearheaded by Lindsay Halligan, a White House aide and newly appointed federal prosecutor in Virginia, centers on Comey's alleged false statements and obstruction of a congressional proceeding. Specifically, the charges relate to Comey's September 30, 2020, testimony concerning the Arctic Haze leak investigation, where classified information was disseminated through multiple newspaper articles. This investigation stemmed from Comey's authorization of a media leak regarding Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. Initially, agents were asked to participate in a planned early morning surrender, intended as a media spectacle. However, the agents' refusal led to disciplinary action. The decision not to conduct a traditional perp walk, arrest, or public spectacle reflects Halligan's desire to avoid creating a media circus. The Justice Department maintains control over interactions with Comey and his legal team, overseen by Judge Michael Nachmanoff. FBI Director Kash Patel publicly emphasized adherence to the chain of command, stating that those who deviate face relief from their positions. The case's swift charging, following Halligan's appointment, raises questions about the strength of the evidence. Despite concerns from some Trump allies regarding preferential treatment, Halligan insists on a measured approach, rejecting any attempt to generate a media spectacle. Comey is expected to plead not guilty and is seeking a trial. The handling of this case is likely to become a significant element within the proceedings. Peacehaven mosque fire suspected hate crime sparks community fear. A devastating arson attack on a mosque in Peacehaven, East Sussex, has prompted a police investigation and heightened community anxieties, following a similar incident in Manchester. 2 individuals wearing balaclavas and carrying gasoline attempted to force entry into the mosque on Saturday night, setting fire to the building's entrance and a parked vehicle. No one was physically injured, but the attack, treated as a suspected hate crime, has left the Muslim community deeply shaken. Police have released images of the 2 suspects, one wearing a distinctive black jacket with a pre-London logo, and the other wearing bright red gloves. An increased police presence is now in place at the scene, alongside additional patrols at other places of worship across the county, aimed at providing reassurance. The attack occurred while the mosque's chairman and a fellow worshipper, both in their 60s, were enjoying a cup of tea after evening prayers. The suspects attempted to force entry, pouring gasoline on the steps and the mosque's door. The chairman, a taxi driver, has lost his vehicle, a vital part of his livelihood. The incident follows a pattern of escalating intimidation, with the mosque previously targeted twice overnight with eggs thrown at the building and racial slurs shouted by passersby. This latest attack underscores a broader trend of Islamophobic and anti-Semitic hate crimes across the UK. The attack outside a synagogue in Manchester, resulting in the deaths of 2 Jewish worshippers, has further fueled concerns about rising hate crimes. Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned the Manchester attack and warned of the dangers of rising hatred. Community leaders, including Brighton and Hove Muslim Forum Chair Tariq Jung, expressed deep sadness and condemnation, emphasizing the need for faith leaders to unite against hate. Liberal Democrat MP for Lewes District, James McCleary, and Labour MP for Brighton Kemptown and Peacehaven, Chris Ward, have both condemned the attack. Sussex Police Detective Superintendent Kerry Bohanna stated the impact of the fire will be felt by the Muslim community. The incident has prompted heightened security measures and increased vigilance within the local area. The community remains on edge, feeling unsafe and paranoid, demanding a swift resolution and a commitment to combating hate.